The diplomatic shuttle descended through Viridia Prime's crimson atmosphere like a silver teardrop against the alien sky. Captain Ethan Cross pressed his face against the viewport, watching the sprawling crystal cities emerge from the swirling clouds below. 3 years of preparation had led to this moment. Humanity's first formal diplomatic contact with the Viridian Empire. Ethan adjusted his dress uniform for the 100th time, running his fingers through his dark hair. At 32, he had commanded respect across 3 star systems, but nothing had prepared him for this mission. The Viridians were rumored to be the most advanced civilization in this sector of the galaxy, masters of biotechnology that bordered on magic. The shuttle touched down in what appeared to be a living landing bay. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, and the floor felt warm beneath their feet. Ethan's small diplomatic team emerged cautiously, their breath visible in the humid, oxygen-rich atmosphere. "Welcome to Viridia Prime, humans." The voice was melodious, carrying an accent that made even basic words sound like poetry. Ethan turned toward the speaker and felt his breath catch in his throat. She stood perhaps 6 feet tall, with skin that held a subtle lavender hue that seemed to shift with the ambient light. Her hair was silver white, flowing like liquid mercury past her shoulders. But it was her eyes that captured him completely, deep violet pools that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages and the fire of youth simultaneously. Her body was unmistakably feminine, curves accentuated by a flowing garment that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. When she moved, Ethan caught glimpses of smooth skin beneath the translucent fabric, and he forced himself to focus on her face. "I am Princess Zila, heir to the throne of lights," she continued, her lips curving in what might have been amusement. "My father has appointed me to oversee your accommodation during your stay." Ethan stepped forward, offering the formal bow he had practiced countless times. "Your Highness, I am Captain Ethan Cross, representing the United Earth Federation. We are honored by your hospitality." Zella's violet eyes swept over him with obvious assessment, lingering on his broad shoulders and the way his uniform hugged his athletic frame. "How quaint," she said, her tone carrying a note of condescension. "Your species' attachment to physical rituals is amusing." Behind her, a smaller Viridian with intricate tattoos covering his blue-tinged skin stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Trix, Princess. Perhaps we should escort our guests to their quarters before beginning formal proceedings." Zella waved a dismissive hand. "Of course, though I confess myself curious about human customs. Tell me, Captain Cross, is it true that your species practices something called romance?" The way she said the word made it sound like a foreign concept, something both fascinating and ridiculous. Ethan felt heat rise in his cheeks. "We do form emotional bonds, yes. Love is considered one of our highest virtues." "Love," Zella repeated, testing the word on her tongue. "How primitive. On Viridia, we understand that attraction is merely a biological imperative. We have evolved beyond such limitations." As they walked through corridors that seemed grown rather than built, Ethan found himself studying the princess. Her movements were graceful, almost hypnotic, and he caught hints of a subtle fragrance that reminded him of night-blooming flowers. Despite her dismissive words, he noticed how her gaze kept returning to him. Their quarters were luxurious beyond anything Ethan had imagined. The walls were alive, literally, shifting colors based on mood and need. The furniture seemed to mold itself to their bodies, and the windows offered a breathtaking view of the city's bioluminescent spires. "Your chambers are equipped with atmospheric controls suited to your biology," Zella explained, her voice taking on a more professional tone. "Ambassador Trix will brief you on proper etiquette for tomorrow's formal reception." She turned to leave, but paused at the threshold. "Captain Cross, might I ask you something?" "Of course, Your Highness." This concept of physical affection that Humans practice. Do you truly believe it strengthens your bonds with others? Ethan considered his answer carefully. Physical touch can express emotions that words cannot. A gentle caress, a passionate kiss. These things can communicate love, comfort, desire in ways that transcend language. Zella's eyes widened slightly, and for a moment her composed mask slipped. Fascinating, she murmured. On Viridia, such contact is reserved for reproduction. Alone, we consider emotional attachment a weakness. Perhaps, Ethan said, taking a step closer, but weakness can also be a kind of strength. The willingness to be vulnerable with another person, to trust them with your heart. It takes tremendous courage. For a heartbeat, they stood close enough that Ethan could see the faint patterns of light that played beneath her skin. Zella's breathing had quickened, and her pupils dilated as she looked up at him. She began, then seemed to catch herself. Ridiculous human notions, she said sharply, but her voice lacked conviction. Rest well, Captain. Tomorrow's negotiations will be challenging. After she left, Ethan found himself unable to concentrate on the briefing materials. Ambassador Trix had provided detailed cultural notes, but Ethan's mind kept returning to the moment when Zella's carefully maintained composure had cracked. The next morning brought the formal reception in the Palace of Living Light. The great hall was a marvel of biotechnology, its walls breathing slowly as thousands of Viridian nobles gathered in their flowing robes. Ethan and his small team stood out starkly in their Earth uniforms. Emperor Xander sat upon a throne that seemed carved from a single massive pearl, his presence commanding absolute attention. Beside him, Princess Zella wore ceremonial robes that left little to the imagination, the translucent fabric clinging to her curves like a second skin. The negotiations began with ritual exchanges of gifts and formal declarations of peaceful intent. But Ethan found his attention constantly drawn to Zella, who seemed to be studying him with equal intensity. During a break in proceedings, she approached him in a secluded alcove. Your species' diplomatic protocols are inefficient, she said, but there was something different in her tone. All this posturing and formal language. Do humans never simply say what they mean? Sometimes, Ethan replied, stepping closer. But sometimes the most important things can't be put into words. Explain. Instead of answering, Ethan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he gently touched her cheek. Her skin was incredibly soft and warm to the touch despite its alien hue. Zella gasped, her eyes fluttering closed for a moment. What is this sensation? Tenderness, Ethan whispered. Affection without demand, care without expectation. When she opened her eyes, they blazed with something between confusion and hunger. This is what you call romantic love? Part of it, he confirmed, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. Love takes many forms. Gentle and fierce, patient and urgent, giving and taking. Zella's hand came up to cover his, pressing his palm more firmly against her face. Show me, she breathed. Show me what this means. Ethan felt his heart race as he leaned closer. Her lips were full and slightly parted, and her breath carried a sweet, exotic scent. Just as their mouths were about to meet, a sharp voice cut through the moment. Princess Zella. Ambassador Trix appeared around the corner, his expression alarmed. The Emperor requests your immediate presence. The Corvin delegation has arrived unexpectedly. Zella jerked back as if burned, her composure snapping back into place like armor. Of course, she said coldly. Duty calls. But as she walked away, Ethan caught her looking back over her shoulder, her violet eyes filled with something that looked very much like longing. The rest of the day passed in a blur of formal ceremonies and careful diplomatic language. But beneath the surface, Ethan could feel the tension building between him and the alien princess. Every shared glance was charged with electricity, Every brief touch sent heat racing through his veins. That evening, as Ethan stood on his quarters balcony overlooking the city, he heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned to find Zella approaching, now dressed in simpler robes that somehow made her look even more beautiful. "I told my guards I needed to inspect the guest quarters," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They believe I am ensuring your comfort." "And are you?" Ethan asked, turning to face her fully. "I am trying to understand," she replied, moving closer until they stood just arm's length apart. "This feeling you spoke of, this tenderness, I cannot. Stop thinking about it. What does your culture teach about such feelings? That they are weakness, that they cloud judgment and lead to poor decisions." Her hand lifted hesitantly toward his face. "But when you touched me today, I felt powerful, as if I could conquer worlds or heal them with equal ease." Ethan caught her hand, bringing it to his lips to press a gentle kiss to her palm. Zella shuddered, her eyes closing as a soft sound escaped her throat. "This is impossible," she whispered. "I am to be bonded to General Corvin to secure a military alliance. My personal desires are irrelevant, are they?" Ethan asked, stepping closer until he could feel the heat radiating from her skin. "Or is that just what you've been taught to believe?" "You do not understand," Zella said, but she made no move to pull away. "On Viridia, duty comes before all else. Personal attachment is considered a mental illness." "Then maybe," Ethan said, reaching up to stroke her silver hair, "it's time for Viridia to learn something new." Their faces were inches apart now, and Ethan could see the war being fought behind her violet eyes. Duty against desire, tradition against the pull of something she had never experienced before. "Captain Cross," she breathed, her hands fisting in his uniform jacket, "what you are suggesting could destroy everything." "Or," he replied, his lips brushing against her ear, "it could save it." The moment stretched between them like a held breath, full of infinite possibility and terrible danger. And in that crystalline instant, as alien and human stood on the precipice of something that could change the fate of two worlds, the foundation was laid for a love story that would echo across the stars. The night air of Viridia Prime carried the sound of distant music and celebration, but in the quiet alcove of the guest quarters, two hearts beat in perfect synchronization, belonging to beings from different worlds, yet finding themselves inexorably drawn together by forces neither science nor tradition could explain. The morning sun of Viridia Prime cast ethereal light through the living walls of the palace, but Princess Zilla felt as though she moved through a dream. Sleep had eluded her completely after her encounter with Captain Cross. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt the phantom touch of his fingers against her skin, the warmth of his breath near her ear. She stood before her reflection in the biomirror, watching as the surface rippled to show her current emotional state. The swirling patterns of deep purple and gold betrayed her inner turmoil, despite her attempts to maintain royal composure. "Princess," came a stern voice from behind her. "General." Corvin entered her chambers without invitation, his massive frame filling the doorway. Unlike other Viridians, his skin held a deep emerald hue, marked with ritual scars that spoke of countless battles. His eyes, cold as winter stars, fixed on her with possessive intensity. "General," Zella replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. "You arrive early for our scheduled meeting." "I arrive when duty demands," Corvin said, moving closer until she could smell the metallic scent that always surrounded him. "The Emperor has informed me of certain irregularities in your behavior regarding the human delegation." Zella's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. "I am fulfilling my role as diplomatic hostess, nothing more." Corvin's hand shot out, gripping her chin with enough force to leave marks. "Do not lie to me, Zella. I have eyes throughout this palace. You were seen speaking privately with their captain. touching him. "Release me," Zella commanded, her royal authority cutting through the air like a blade. Reluctantly, Corvin loosened his grip, but his eyes promised retribution. "Remember your place," he growled. "In 3 days, we will be bonded before the High Council. Your curiosity about inferior species ends now." After he left, Zella sank onto her meditation platform, her body trembling with a mixture of fear and rage. The bruises on her chin throbbed, but they paled compared to the ache in her chest. She thought of Ethan's gentle touch, so different from Corvin's brutal possession. Meanwhile, in the human quarters, Ethan paced like a caged predator. Dr. Luna. Hayes, the expedition's xenobiologist, watched him with growing concern. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her green eyes held the sharp intelligence that had made her one of Earth's foremost experts on alien biology. "You're going to wear a hole in that biofloor," Luna observed, setting down her data pad. "Want to tell me what has you so agitated?" Ethan stopped pacing, running his hands through his hair. "It's complicated, Luna. Try me. I've spent the last 5 years studying alien mating rituals. Not much surprises me anymore." "The princess," Ethan said simply, and Luna's eyebrows rose. "Ah, the beautiful, untouchable heir to the Viridian throne. I see the appeal, but Ethan, you do realize she's essentially alien royalty, right? This isn't some vacation romance." "I know that," Ethan snapped, then immediately softened his tone. "I'm sorry. It's just, there's something about her, Luna. When I touch her, when I see her try to understand human emotion, it's like watching someone discover fire for the first time." Luna studied his face carefully. "You're falling for her. I think I already have." Before Luna could respond, Ambassador Trix appeared at their door, his blue skin darker than usual with stress. "Captain Cross, your immediate presence is requested in the council chamber. There has been a development." A council chamber buzzed with tension as Ethan entered. Emperor Xander sat upon his pearl throne, his expression thunderous. Princess Zila stood to his right, her face a mask of royal composure, but Ethan immediately noticed the bruises on her chin. His hands clenched into fists. "Captain Cross," the Emperor's voice boomed across the chamber. "It has come to my attention that you have overstepped the boundaries of diplomatic protocol. Your Majesty, if I have given offense, silence." "Xander's?" Eyes blazed with cold fire. "You will listen. My daughter is to be bonded to General Corvin in 3 days' time. This alliance will secure Viridia's military supremacy for generations. Your interference threatens that union." Ethan's gaze found Zella's, and he saw the pain she was trying so hard to hide. "With respect, Your Majesty, should the princess not have a choice in who she bonds with?" The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. No one questioned the Emperor's decisions, especially not an alien outsider. "Choice?" Xander laughed, but the sound held no humor. "Choice is a luxury afforded to those without responsibility. Zella is a princess of Viridia. Her personal desires are irrelevant." "Perhaps," Ethan said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "that's exactly the problem." The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan felt every eye in the room fixed upon him, but his attention remained locked on Zella. He saw her violet eyes widen, saw the faint tremor in her hands. "You dare," Corvin began, stepping forward with murder in his eyes. "I dare to speak truth," Ethan interrupted, his military training keeping his voice steady despite the danger. "I've watched Princess Zella these past days. I've seen her curiosity, her intelligence, her capacity for growth. She's being forced into a life that will destroy everything unique about her." "Enough." Xander rose from his throne, power radiating from him in visible waves. "You will return to your quarters immediately. The negotiations are terminated. You will leave Viridia Prime at dawn. As guards moved to escort him away, Ethan caught Zila's gaze one last time. In that brief moment, he mouthed 3 words that Number Viridian had ever heard spoken with such conviction. I love you. Zella's composure finally cracked. A single tear traced down her lavender cheek as the guards led Ethan from the chamber. That night, Zella waited until the palace slept before making her way to the human quarters. The guards at Ethan's door had been dismissed. After all, what threat could a departing diplomat pose? She found him on his balcony, staring up at the twin moons of Viridia. He turned at her approach, and she saw her own pain reflected in his. Dark eyes. You came, he said softly. I had to. Zella moved closer, no longer caring about propriety or protocol. What you said in the council chamber, did you mean it? Every word. Ethan reached for her hands, intertwining their fingers. Zella, in the short time I've known you, you've shown me what it means to see the universe through someone else's eyes. You make me want to be better than I am. I do not understand these feelings, Zella whispered, moving closer until their bodies almost touched. When you look at me, I feel as though I am burning from within. When you speak my name, my heart beats so loudly, I fear the entire palace can hear it. That's love, Ethan said, cupping her face gently, careful of the bruises Corvin had left. The willingness to risk everything for another person's happiness. Then I love you too, Zella breathed, the words falling from her lips like a prayer. I love you, and it terrifies me. Their mouths met in a kiss that was both tender and desperate. Zella melted against him, her hands fisting in his shirt as she experienced physical affection for the first time in her life. The kiss deepened, years of loneliness and duty dissolving in the heat of their connection. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Zella's eyes were bright with wonder and desire. Is this what humans call passion? She asked, her voice husky. Part of it, Ethan replied, his hands skimming down her arms. But passion is more than just physical attraction. It's the need to protect someone, to support them, to share every joy and sorrow. Zella pressed closer, her curves molding against his solid frame. Show me, she whispered. Show me what it means to be truly alive. Wait. In the soft, pulsing light of the living walls, they explored this new world they had discovered together. Ethan's hands were reverent as they traced the patterns of light beneath her skin. Every touch drew soft gasps from Zella's lips, her body responding to sensations she had never imagined possible. When his mouth followed the path his hands had traced, she cried out in a language that transcended words. You are beautiful, Ethan murmured against her throat, feeling her pulse race beneath his lips. Perfect and powerful and absolutely incredible. Zella had never felt beautiful before. Valuable, yes. Useful as a political asset. But under Ethan's adoring gaze, she felt like a goddess awakening to her own divinity. Their lovemaking was slow and exploratory, each learning the other's responses, building trust and intimacy with every caress. When they finally joined completely, Zella understood why her people feared this connection. It was overwhelming in its intensity, this complete vulnerability to another being. Afterwards, they lay entwined in the biobed's embrace, Zella's head resting on Ethan's chest as his fingers combed through her silver hair. What happens now? She asked quietly. I don't know, Ethan admitted, but whatever comes, we'll face it together. Together, Zella repeated, testing the word. On Viridia, everyone faced their challenges alone. The concept of shared burdens was as foreign as the concept of romantic love had been just days before. Ethan, she said, lifting her head to look at him. If I refuse the bonding with Corvin, there will be war. Millions will die. And if you accept it, you'll die inside, Ethan replied. Sometimes the greatest courage is choosing to live authentically, even when the consequences seem impossible to bear. As dawn approached over Viridia Prime, they knew their time was running out. Soon Ethan would be forced to leave, and Zela would be bound to a man who saw her as property rather than a person. But in these stolen hours, they had found something worth fighting for. Love had taken root between the stars, and neither distance. Nor duty would be enough to destroy what they had built together. The sound of approaching footsteps made them both freeze. Heavy boots on biostone, moving with military precision toward their sanctuary. Corvin, Zela breathed, her face going pale. The door burst open, revealing the general flanked by armed guards. His emerald skin was flushed with rage as he took. In the scene before him, his intended bride naked in the arms of a human. "Seize him," Corvin snarled. "The alien dies for this insult." As guards rushed forward, Ethan pushed Zela behind him, preparing to fight despite being outnumbered 10-1. But before violence could erupt, a new voice cut through the chaos. "Stop!" Dr. Luna Hayes stood in the doorway, her datapad glowing with urgent information. "Before you execute anyone, you might want to know what I've discovered about Viridian. Biology." All eyes turned to her as she stepped into the room with complete confidence. "Princess Zela isn't just attracted to Captain Cross," Luna announced. "She's bonded to him, permanently, and according to your own ancient laws, that makes their union legally binding." The implications of Luna's words hung in the air like a challenge to everything Viridian society believed about itself. In the stunned silence that followed, the fate of two worlds balanced on the edge of a knife. The tension in the room was suffocating as all eyes turned to Dr. Luna Hayes. Her auburn hair caught the morning light streaming through the bio windows, and her green eyes blazed with scientific conviction. In her hands, the datapad hummed with readings that could change the course of galactic history. "Explain yourself, human," General Corvin growled, his hand resting on the weapon at his hip. "What nonsense do you speak of bonding?" Luna stepped forward fearlessly, her voice steady despite being surrounded by armed Viridian guards. "I've been studying Viridian physiology since we arrived. Your species has evolved a unique neurochemical response to deep emotional connection, something you've suppressed for so long that you've forgotten it exists." Emperor Xander materialized in the doorway, his massive presence filling the space. Behind him came Ambassador Trix and several members of the High Council, all drawn by the commotion. Zela instinctively pressed closer to Ethan, who kept his arm protectively around her, despite their precarious situation. "Continue," the Emperor commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Luna activated her datapad, projecting holographic brain scans into the air. When Princess Zela and Captain Cross made physical contact, their neural patterns synchronized. "Look at these readings. The release of bonding chemicals in her system is off the charts. This isn't simple attraction. This is a permanent neurological connection." "Impossible," Corvin spat. "Viridians do not form such primitive attachments." "You're wrong," Luna replied calmly. "Your ancestors did. The capacity is still there in your DNA, just dormant. Princess Zela has awakened something that's been sleeping in your people for millennia." Zela stared at the holographic displays, her violet eyes wide with wonder. "I feel it," she whispered. "Even now, I can sense his emotions, his thoughts. When he's in pain, I hurt too." "This proves nothing," Corvin snarled, moving toward them menacingly. "Even if such a connection exists, it can be severed, medically corrected." "No," came a new voice from the doorway. Captain Rivers, Ethan's second in command, strode into the room with military precision. His blonde hair was disheveled and his uniform wrinkled, suggesting he'd come directly from his ship. "It can't be severed because it's already been recognized by the Galactic Council." All eyes turned to the newcomer as he produced an official communication device. 20 minutes ago, we received priority transmission from Earth, the xenobiological. Data Dr. Hayes transmitted last night has been reviewed by the Council's top scientists. They've officially recognized the Cross-Zella bond as a legitimate interspecies union under galactic law. Emperor Xander's face darkened like a storm cloud. The Galactic Council has no authority over Viridian internal affairs. Actually, they do, Rivers continued, his voice carrying the confidence of a man holding winning cards. When Viridia signed the Non-Interference Treaty 3 years ago, you agreed to abide by Council decisions regarding interspecies relations. This falls directly under that jurisdiction. The chamber erupted in angry voices as the implications sank in. Corvin's hand moved to his weapon, but Ethan stepped forward, still protecting Zella, but ready to defend his people. "There's more," Rivers announced, raising his voice above the chaos. "The Council has granted Princess Zella political asylum on Earth, if she chooses to claim it. As Captain Cross's bonded mate, she has legal protection under Federation law. You cannot steal our princess," one of the Council members shouted. "We're not stealing anyone," Ethan said firmly, his arm tightening around Zila's waist. "The choice is hers to make." All eyes turned to Zella, who stood trembling between two worlds. On one side lay everything she had ever known: duty, tradition, the crushing weight of royal obligation. On the other lay the unknown, a future built on love and choice rather than political necessity. "Zella," Emperor Xander said, his voice softer now, almost pleading, "you are my heir. Without you, the throne passes to the military caste. Is your personal happiness worth the destruction of our civilization?" "Father," Zella replied, stepping forward but keeping her hand clasped in Ethan's. "What civilization? Are we preserving? One where love is considered a disease? Where individuals exist only to serve political needs? Where daughters are traded like commodities? Those ways have kept us strong for 3,000 years, Xander insisted. Have they? Zila challenged, her voice growing stronger. We are isolated, feared, alone in the galaxy. Our people live in emotional poverty, while we congratulate ourselves on our strength. Perhaps it is time for a new kind of strength. Luna stepped forward, her data pad still glowing with readings. Emperor Xander, the neurochemical changes in Princess Zella's brain are already spreading. Other Viridians in the palace are beginning to show similar patterns. This isn't just about one bond. It's about the awakening of your species' capacity for deep emotional connection. As if to prove her point, Ambassador Trix suddenly stumbled, his blue skin flushing darker as he stared at Luna with new awareness. What is happening to me? You're feeling attraction, Luna said gently. Probably for the first time in your life. It's natural, Trix. It's what you were meant to feel. Across the room, similar scenes were playing out as Viridians found themselves, experiencing emotions they'd been taught to suppress. The change was rippling outward, like stones thrown into still water. This is madness, Corvin roared, drawing his weapon at last. I will not allow alien contamination to corrupt our people. The energy blast he fired was aimed directly at Ethan's heart. Time seemed to slow as Zila watched death race toward the man she loved. Without thinking, she threw herself between them, her body intercepting the deadly beam. The weapon's energy struck her chest, sending her crashing backward into Ethan's arms. Her lavender skin began to fade to gray as the life force drained from her body. No! Ethan's anguished cry echoed through the chamber as he dropped to his knees, cradling her against his chest. Zila, stay with me. Please, stay with me. Her violet eyes flickered open, focusing on his face with tremendous effort. I love you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Remember that. Whatever happens, remember. You're not dying, Ethan said fiercely, his hands pressing against the wound in her chest. "I won't let you die." Around them, the chamber had erupted into chaos. Corvin stood frozen, weapon still smoking in his hand as the reality of what he'd done sank in. Emperor Xander knelt beside his daughter, his own composure finally cracking. "My child," he whispered, touching her face with shaking hands, "forgive me. I have been so wrong." Dr. Hayes was already scanning Zella with medical equipment, her face grim. "The weapon disrupted her neural pathways. Her life force is dissipating." "Then fix it," Ethan demanded, his voice breaking. "I can't," Luna admitted. "This technology is beyond human medicine. Unless—" She looked up at Emperor Xander, hope flickering in her eyes. "The Royal Healing Chambers. If we can get her there quickly enough, the biotechnology might be able to repair the damage." "Do it," Xander commanded, his royal authority cutting through. "The chaos, all of you. Save my daughter." As they rushed through the palace corridors, Ethan carrying Zella's limp form, he felt something extraordinary happening. The bond between them, the neurochemical connection Luna had discovered, was flowing. In reverse. His life force was pouring into her, sustaining her even as her own systems failed. The healing chamber was a marvel of biotechnology, its walls pulsing with regenerative energy. As they placed Zella within its embrace, the chamber immediately began working to repair the damage to her neural pathways. "The bond," Luna breathed, watching her readings in amazement. "It's stabilizing her. Ethan, your connection to her is literally keeping her alive." Hours passed as they maintained their vigil. Emperor Xander stood beside Ethan, both men united in their love for the woman fighting for her life before them. The petty concerns of politics and tradition seemed meaningless compared to this fundamental truth. "I was wrong," Xander said quietly. "About love, about choice, about what makes us strong. Watching her sacrifice herself for you. I see now what I have denied my people." "She's going to live," Ethan said, though his voice shook with exhaustion. The effort of maintaining their bond was draining him, but he refused to let go. As dawn broke over Viridia Prime, Zella's eyes finally opened. The color had returned to her skin, and the wound in her chest had healed completely. She sat up slowly, her gaze immediately finding Ethan's face. "You stayed," she said wonderingly. "Always," he replied, pulling her into his arms. "I'll always stay." Their kiss was witnessed by both human and Viridian observers, a symbol of hope for a new future. Around them, the palace itself seemed to respond to their connection, the biotechnology glowing brighter as if feeding off their love. "Father," Zella said, turning to Emperor Xander, "I choose Earth. I choose love. But I also choose to be a bridge between our peoples, if you'll let me." Xander smiled, the expression transforming his stern features. "I think, my daughter, that is exactly what the galaxy needs." In the months that followed, the marriage of Captain Ethan Cross and Princess Zella became a symbol of unity between species. Their bond had awakened something in the Viridian people that had been dormant for millennia, the capacity for deep, meaningful emotional connection. The wedding ceremony took place on both Earth and Viridia Prime simultaneously, linked by quantum communication arrays. Humans and Viridians stood together as witnesses to a love that had conquered the barriers of species, culture, and tradition. Dr. Luna Hayes, who had become fast friends with Ambassador Trix during their courtship, served as the human officiant. Her research into interspecies bonding had opened new fields of study and diplomacy throughout the galaxy. General Corvin, after facing trial for his attack on the princess, had been exiled to the outer colonies. But even he had been affected by the awakening of Viridian emotions, and reports suggested he was learning to feel remorse for his actions. As Ethan and Zella stood together in the Garden of Eternal Light on their wedding day. Surrounded by beings from two worlds, they represented something unprecedented in galactic history, proof that love could indeed conquer all boundaries. "Do you think we changed the universe?" Zella asked, her voice soft as they danced under the twin moons of Viridia. "I think," Ethan replied, spinning her gently in his arms, "the universe changed us, and we just had the courage to let it happen." Their laughter rang out across the garden, a sound of pure joy that seemed to make the very stars shine brighter. In choosing love over duty, heart over tradition, they had discovered that the greatest strength of all was the willingness to be vulnerable with another soul. The alien princess who had once mocked human affection had learned that love was not weakness, but the most powerful force in the universe. And the human captain who had risked everything for one kiss had discovered that some things were indeed worth dying for, and more importantly, worth living for. As their story spread throughout the galaxy, harried by trade ships and diplomatic missions, it became a beacon of hope for countless beings trapped by tradition and fear. Love, they learned, was not a human concept or a Viridian weakness. It was a universal truth, waiting to be discovered by any brave enough to open their hearts to its transformative power. And in the end, that was perhaps the greatest victory of all, not just the salvation of two hearts, but the awakening of an entire galaxy to the possibility of love without boundaries, connection without limits, and a future built on hope rather than fear.